Well, welcome back to our third week study in Job. We've got another section of the reading for Sunday to look at, the second section that comes from Job chapter 19. We're going to read that and I'm going to show you a couple of resources, and then Linda and Diane and I have some questions that we're going to discuss. Chapter 19, verse 23, down at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Oh, that my words were written down. Oh, that they were inscribed in a book. Oh, that with an iron pen and with lead they were engraved on a rock forever. For I know that my Redeemer lives, and at the last he will stand upon the earth. And after my skin has been thus destroyed, then in my flesh I shall see God, whom I shall see on my side, and my eyes shall behold, and not another. My heart faints within me. It's this verse 25 that I want to look at. That's part of a reading that is often used at funerals, actually. For I know that my Redeemer lives, and there's echoes of it in Handel's Messiah, right? For I know that my Redeemer lives, and at the last he will stand on the earth. There's no question mark normally in the reading. That's just there as a note for me that that's one of the verses that we're going to be looking at. Now, if we look at two different commentaries on the reading, two different interpretations of what's going on here. So, in the Harper's Bible Commentary, which is the section on the right, it says that the Hebrew word alludes to a custom known from passages such as Numbers 35:19 and Deuteronomy 19:6 and 12 that refer to the avenger of blood. And that when someone was killed by a member of another tribe or clansman, the injured clan appointed one of its number to take vengeance on the murderer on behalf of the deceased. What it says in the other panel is that, from this preaching from the lectionary resource, is that what Job wants to stand forever in lead upon stone is Job's conviction that his ransomer is a living God who will fulfill that office for him. So one resource says that this is talking about a person, a clansman, somebody from Job's family or tribe, and the other says that it's not that, it's probably Job is talking about wanting people to know that he believes that God will do this for him. Now, one of the ways that is translated, often translated, used in Handel's Messiah, used in the NRSV that we read from, the word that is translated is to redeemer, but some of the commentaries say that a better translation, a truer translation, would be that of an avenger. And so our first question is, what do you think of that translation instead of wanting somebody who will come to avenge all that has been done wrong to Job? Which translation do you like better, a redeemer or an avenger?
Redeemer.
We've been taught to accept the Redeemer.
Right. What's the difference between the two? How would you see those two words differently, an avenger and a redeemer?
Well, I think an avenger is trying to get back at whoever has offended you, perhaps kill them. I mean, I think that's what he's referring to, and it, certainly from the reference material, that's what I thought. And a redeemer is, to me, someone who forgives what has been done, the wrongs that have been done. So I don't really see them. There's not a relationship that I see. I see them as diametrically opposed, actually.
For me, I can see a relation between the two if you use the word redeemer as a savior. So if a redeemer is coming to save you from something, an avenger may be coming to do the same thing, but it involves punishment. The savior part of it doesn't necessarily involve punishment. It might be he might snatch you from the lion's grip. The avenger might snatch you from the lion, but would also kill the lion.
Right.
And
That's how I think they could potentially be related, and that kind of that always becomes a problem for me when we read things like this and we analyze them. My cynical brain goes into overdrive and says, remember, this is a translation. This is a translation that somebody chose this word because it reflected what they personally were thinking.
Right. One of the things that I find difficult to do at times is to read a passage from the Hebrew Scriptures and try and think of it outside of the context of my Christian understanding. Because when I hear Handel's Messiah and hear a reference to the Redeemer, I think of Jesus. Job was not thinking of Jesus, right? Jesus hadn't been born at the time that Job's story was created, right? And so it's hard for me to separate my understanding of how Jesus redeemed the world from reading this passage. And particularly as I've read this passage, that one snippet, and I don't know how many funerals that I've done over 25 years. I can't help think about Jesus, and I can't reconcile those two images that you came up with, Linda, of sort of the difference between the Redeemer and the Avenger, right? I believe in a Jesus and a God that would redeem, that would rescue. I don't really want to believe in a Jesus and a God that would rescue and kill the lion at the same time.
Right. We also, when we look at this, that's printed with a capital R on Redeemer. Redeemer can just be a word.
Right.
But because that capital R is in the script, then our mind automatically thinks of Jesus. I mean, it seems that whoever published that version of the story wanted us to see, and yet I'm not sure that it's necessary to an understanding of the story itself.
Right. Yeah, that is one of the things about translations, right? These The NRSV was translated by a committee. There was somebody in charge of the committee who oversaw the bringing of it all together. But essentially, a committee got together and tried to figure out, based on the different historical fragments that we have, which ones they should give more weight to and which ones they should give less weight to. Again, with the Hebrew scriptures, at one point there were no vowels written down. It was just the consonants. And then the rabbis went in at some point and said, well, here are the vowels that should go with these consonants. So there are cases where we're not certain we've got the right word even in the Hebrew scriptures. And so putting a capital on the R made sense to the committee. So it gets very difficult at times to know really what was Job's intention here. I know, again, what I want to believe in. I want to believe in a God who will save me, probably from myself more often than not, but, but wouldn't then go and kill the lion at the same time. So I would prefer the translation of Redeemer, even though Avenger may be closer. I still don't know how to reconcile the kinsman or family connotation to that term, and what that might mean, given again our Christian understanding of being part of God's family. And I don't know how that plays in yet. That I still need to do some thinking about. But yeah, you can see how there's two different understandings of this is describing a person, and Job really wants you to know that it was God.
Yeah.
Right?
It's complicated.
Yes. Yes. Now, if you were in Job's situation of having lost all your possessions, all your family, your friends even turn on you, which would you want more in that circumstance? Would you want the Redeemer who comes in and saves you, or would you want vengeance? And who is it that you think Job is wanting the redemption from or vengeance against?
I can only assume that it's Satan who caused these things. And so he's the bad guy in this, I think. But, Job must have had moments where, well, it sounded like he did, where he questioned if God had really done this, or at least had let it happen to him. But otherwise, who would take vengeance against? You're not going to go against the camel thieves and the children murderers and that. I shouldn't think. I don't know. I would just want to get out of there, so I'd be going for. Please just save me and take me somewhere else where nothing bad will happen again.
I mean, I think, we're all human. And if the things that Job experienced happened to me, like I can't even imagine that. I can't imagine it, but I think that most people would want to get back at whoever has caused this heartache for them, this loss. And I think, again, it's all in context as far as I consider it anyways. If I would have been Job back in that scenario, I think that I mean, I couldn't understand why after he did lose his family and his possessions, why did he not get angry immediately with God? With time, though, seems he did. Something happened along the way and he got very angry. And so it's kind of like an evolution that happened to him. And for me, I think, you say, well, would you be vengeful or not? How would you react? And I think I would be upset and vengeful and want to get back at people. But my own belief system has kind of evolved from I got to get back at somebody, not that I made a point of doing that, but
Right.
but that kind of thinking, to the point where now with a deeper faith, I put that aside. I'm not saying I don't go through it. I do, but having gone through a real situation where I had to determine how was I going to handle this vengeful situation? Could have been vengeful. And after you think about it and pray about it, once again, I thought, and this might seem strange, but I thought, for this person to have done such a thing, which, in my own belief system, my own practice, my own life, I never would have done something like that. But then, as I thought about it, I realized they must be in a great deal of pain themselves in order to have done something so terrible. And I questioned I wonder what that pain was. I'm not sure. But that helped me to stay away from revenge.
Right.
That's just my experience. So I don't think I'd be vengeful under circumstances these days.
Well, this puts me in mind of the restorative justice concept. I think it's not difficult for me to kind of remove myself from a situation where I might be hurt, because it's just my natural inclination to read truth from situations that are hurting me, rather confront them or fight them and want to fight back. But if it were my child who were hurt, then I understand why you might want to take vengeance on somebody who had hurt your child or your loved one. I remember when we were in Sudbury, that was the Paul Bernardo days, and
Right.
Chris French's stepsister was a member of our congregation, and Pam was. I marveled at Pam. I never could truly understand how she could so honestly believe that taking vengeance on a brutal killer and hateful, hurtful person, how that was beyond the ken. That was not something that she wanted to, or I still marvel at that. I mean, theoretically, I can say, well, yes, I get it. And hurting someone else doesn't restore your situation, but boy, I think it would feel good to hurt if I were in a similar situation. So I guess there are times when vengeance is an attractive alternative.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know about that story, and I've met Pam as well, and I agree with you for sure that she's like a saint, or anybody who has had someone hurt their family seriously. I mean, that was a murder. and gruesome and just sick, very sick. And yet she had enough faith that she forgave the two of them.
I totally
It
agree.
just, yeah, amazing.
Yeah, I was living down in Fonthill when all of that transpired, and there was a guy on my street, a couple of years younger than me. I would have been 19, 20, I guess, and so he would have been 17, 18. Had gotten a new to him car. It was a used car. Unfortunately, it was the make and model that was first released when they were searching. Um, and he got pulled over regularly. And because he was always driving in the areas, right? Near the house, near where one of the bodies was dumped, and he didn't know. He didn't know, but as a 17 or 18-year-old to be driving down the road and the police are behind you, and I mean it was really hard for him. Um, and that story, you know, affected a lot of people. And vengeance in that type of story, I think we all understand. Um, and and I do marvel at the people who are able to step away from that vengeance. There was another story of an Anglican priest somewhere in the prairies, I can't remember where his son had been shot, and he wrote a book about how his faith took him through, again, wanting the revenge, the vengeance, to a point where he openly said to his congregation, "I forgive the guy that shot my son. This is what faith is about." That's not easy. And first of all, I hope none of us have to ever experience that in our own lives. Second of all, I hope that I would have the faith to do that. I'm not sure I would. Um, I think there's something natural about the vengeance part that would would pull me towards that. One of the other questions that's been running through my mind is that if Job was talking about a clansman, a kinsman who would be this avenger for him, who would that be? His, what was it, 7 sons and 3 daughters had all died. He had no possessions left. He had no family, um, other than his wife, and assuming that things were as patriarchal as we assume that they were at that point, she wouldn't be the one to act as an avenger for him. Today, that's a different story, and very well could be. But who would it be that would redeem Job? Would redeem this situation for him? Any thoughts?
That's why I think that the translator who chose the word redeemer, I think the translator who did choose the word redeemer, particularly with a capital R, assumes that Job has turned to God as his friend and his confidant, his father. I hadn't really thought about there not being anybody else left, but I sensed that he was speaking to God, and And so you're a Christian theologian examining this story and wanting to translate it, then it's very natural to use the word Redeemer with a capital R, even though it's anachronistic.
Right.
I don't know. I'm thinking, well, I agree with Linda because I do think that at that time, Avenger could be your God as
Right.
well. Although there seems to be some sort of separation to some extent in the reading, but it kind of crossed my mind that since they knew that God had took vengeance upon other, people in the Bible that came before Job, could he be the one to be the avenger?
Yeah, I don't see who else it could be other than God, given the rest of the story as we know it, right? Unless it could have been one of his friends. So again, I understand how maybe this translation and the capitalizing of the R doesn't necessarily fit a literal translation of the text, but I can also see how the committee could support that translation, right? Because I do think that the only person left, from what we've heard, would have been God. So yeah.
It hasn't been answered to this day, so I guess it really comes down to your own personal interpretation. Who's ever going to be able to answer that except God?
Yeah. One of the long list of questions that I'll have when I get to St. Peter.
Let us know, okay, Colin?
Yeah. So. Okay, any other thoughts?
Not really.
Okay. Well, I think we're getting somewhere with Job. It's not as bleak as the first couple of weeks. We're getting somewhere. I'm hoping by the end it'll be even better. So thank you for this, and we'll carry on with Job next week.
Perfect.
Thanks, Colin.
Thank
See you
Thank you.
later.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.